Nothing in recent history that I can remember shows the apathy and the complete disconnect from reality that the general public are experiencing in their everyday lives more than this article. The headline is from a few days ago, but bear with me. Is the West about to sell out Ukraine to Vladimir Putin? As Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande fly to Russia, they will need to carefully gauge the psychology of a man who has brought Europe to the brink of war. Now, this is not from a fringe paper, it's not from a far-right paper or some comic magazine, or from a man ranting in a stupid mask. This comes from the Telegraph, a so-called well-respected mainstream paper. We also had this headline from the same paper. Merkel and Hollande on mission to avert total war. Europe's leaders were in last-ditch talks to broker a peace deal in Ukraine on Thursday night, as threats by America to send arms to Kiev raised fears of a direct confrontation between Russia and the West. Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, and Francois Hollande, the French President, began a two-day visit to Kiev and Moscow in an attempt to get both governments to sign a new ceasefire deal. Now, the talk on Friday was that after 5 whole hours of discussions, they hadn't worked and no one really knew where this left us. However, by Friday evening, things looked a little more positive as Hollande, Merkel and Putin and Kiev appeared to be heading towards a new peace deal. This was happening with the backdrop of America talking about arming Kiev with better weapons than Russia have, because America's cock is obviously bigger than Russia's. Thousands of years of human evolution, and it all comes down to a my cock is bigger than your cock fest. Unbelievable. We are, as a species, so juvenile. If you relate it to the growth of a human being, we're not even out of nappies yet. And yet we're told we're all sensible and grown up, but we clearly aren't. On Saturday, the Telegraph was showing on their homepage the following. It was amongst their live updates. Here is a screenshot. Merkel says, "Do not scare Putin," and Hollande says, "This could be war." Firstly, who the hell made Merkel and Hollande the spokespeople for NATO and the EU? I don't remember voting for them. Secondly, knowing Russia has nuclear weapons and knowing the conflict has been going on for months and months, also taking into account that nearly 6,000 people have died so far, and taking into account the fact that this could escalate dramatically and quite quickly and very easily by the looks of things, Hollande and Merkel allowed a whole 5 hours to negotiate a conflict that could see the whole of Europe dragged into it. Wow, aren't we lucky to have these EU dictators discussing the future of Europe on our behalf? They managed a whole fucking 5 hours. Purple hearts to them. And thirdly, this is where the disconnect with the general public comes in. We could wake up one morning and Susan Reid, the lovely bubbly Susan Reid on Good Morning Britain, could announce with a lovely smile, whilst wearing a really snazzy blouse, that NATO and Russia are officially at war. UK, a key player in Ukraine negotiation, Hammond says. The Foreign Secretary says Britain and US will be at the table, with Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande to negotiate a peaceful settlement to the conflict in Eastern Europe with Vladimir Putin. Oh, and who can forget this article, just from the other day. Former NATO chief hits out at irrelevant David Cameron, you got that bit right, as he warns could spiral into total war. The crisis in Ukraine could lead to total war, General Sir Richard Sheriff, Britain's former NATO chief, warned yesterday. You see, NATO, well, that means us, the UK, because we're a big part of NATO. So, NATO, including the UK, could shortly be at war with Russia. Total war with Russia. That probably means no more fucking iPads for a while. Do you understand that, general public? No iPads. Could you imagine a life with just your iPhone 6 and not having an iPhone 7? Oh my god, that's how serious this is. Now, most of the general public simply will not believe that this has happened because they haven't heard much about it. It's hardly been on the TV. And also, Suzanne Reid said it was such a lovely smile on her face, and that blouse was just so snazzy, it can't possibly be true. She must have got it wrong. And now Merkel has said in a Sky News article, Merkel, uncertain about Ukraine peace bid. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said in a bid to resolve the Ukraine conflict is uncertain but worth trying. That's very big of her, isn't it? Bear in mind this could lead to total war in Europe. She's allowed 5 hours. I suppose it's worth trying. We'll give it a go. As the French president warned, it was one of the last chances for peace. If this happens, people should be scared fucking shitless. An escalation of this war, to include NATO, and also America no doubt, will mean that families in the UK will again have to send their loved ones overseas to fight for corporations, banks and the EU. Do you really want to send your husband, your wife, your son, daughter, your brother or sister to Ukraine to fight Putin for Herman Van fucking Rompuy, or Martin Schulz, or Jean-Claude Juncker, or Jose Manuel fucking Barroso? Honestly, do you really want to send them to fight for these bank clerk looking nomarchs? Are you willing to send your loved ones off to fight so that the international bankers can come in and buy up the country for pennies on the pound afterwards, making them, not you, them, millions and billions in the process? Lest we forget that America, with the help of the EU dictators, spent $5 billion over the last few years to overthrow the democratically elected government in Ukraine and install neo-Nazis. This is how the conflict started. Putin didn't start it. America and the EU dictators started this fucking conflict. Putin will, of course, be portrayed as the aggressor for propaganda purposes at home and in Europe, but he did not start this. I'm no Putin lover, I'm just telling it like it is. But the scary thing is, I wouldn't put it past the Russians to get absolutely fucking shit-faced on vodka whilst doing some impressive looking dance that looks like they're sitting and should fall over as they press the red fucking nuclear button. It is this serious, and hardly anyone of the species called the general public will have a clue why this has happened or how we got here. The general public just do not live in the real fucking world. They live in an illusory world where they actually think Suzanne Reid fancies them because she pouts looking at them through the telly. They haven't got a fucking clue how things work. People will have no idea why they are fighting. They think of you as cannon fodder. Stop being chumps. Get informed. Get fucking informed. The globalists laugh so hard at how easily the general public get fooled on every fucking issue, time and time again. Listen, people will die if this happens. People you and I know will die. If they do, at least have the fucking decency to find out why they were sent there in the fucking first place. I've done loads of videos on the Russia situation, and I hope and pray that I'm wrong and a peace deal can be reached, and soon. But if you listen to some commentators, they say the globalists want a major war with Russia as a tool to be able to blame the upcoming financial crisis. And having allowed a whole fucking 5 hours of face-to-face discussion, that doesn't really give the impression that they've done all they can to avoid this war escalating into what they say can be total fucking war in Europe. Get fucking informed. Time is running out. I'm fed up with meeting people who haven't got a fucking clue. They can't even tie their own bastard shoelaces. General public, you're a fucking embarrassment.